And they compelled a passerby, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his cross. That's from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 15, verse 21. This is episode 2 of our 2-part special, the story of picking up the six through the lens of Simon, a man thrust into an incredible moment in time. Yesterday, we heard from Father James Hamel, and we talked about Simon, who he was, the little that we know about him, and how his act years ago should inspire us still today. Well, today we hear from a pair of high-impact men who now share an incredible bond after bringing that scene to life in an upcoming film. Rob Renzi and Dom Raso join the show to talk about acting side by side as Jesus and Simon on this episode of Pick Up the Six podcast. My brothers, man, I am on fire for this one. Excited to do it and grateful to see and hear from you both. So welcome to Pick Up the Six podcast.
Good to be here, brother.
Honored to be here with you guys.
You know, we I've been tracking, man. You guys, obviously, Rob and I have been friends for almost over probably 25 years at this point. Mm-hmm. Grew up together, went to high school together. His older brother, Ronnie, and I, best of friends, and just have had the blessing of knowing Rob and his family for a long time. And obviously have just watched his journey, which includes taking on the role of Jesus Christ in an upcoming film called Eucharistic Miracles, and we'll get a little bit more into that. So that's just the path there. Dom, obviously just have known you and just seen your work for a long time. Dom's retired Navy SEAL, incredible American warrior, and just grateful, guys, to be able to do this. We spend time together, the three of us, with a group of other Catholic men, and get to just share about the journey that we're on. But what we wanted to do over these 2 days, and we started it yesterday with our dear friend, Father Hamel, was take some time and lean in on this story. And, you know, we're thinking about, as we are here for us as Christians and Catholic Christians in this Lenten journey, these incredibly important days around Easter, what transpires on Holy Thursday, Good Friday, that sets the stage for the Super Bowl of our faith, right? Easter Sunday. And in that, I'm thinking about these moments, and just, I can't help but think about that moment of picking up the six, which is Simon of Cyrene. And it just so happens that you two men are now bonded for life in having brought that scene physically to life in this upcoming film. Rob playing Jesus, Dom brought in all the way from Virginia to LA to play Simon. And so we're going to just talk about that shared experience today. So Rob, do you mind just, man, piecing together how you guys get together on this thing, and how you, I mean, because it's a project in the works, right? You've been working this thing for a long time. Yeah. How does this all kind of give us the genesis of this film, and then, you know, how you guys get connected to make this thing happen?
Yeah, well, the genesis of the film started probably going on almost 2.5 years ago. Our producer, Ray Grijalba, and our director, Angelo Labuti, they started it based on Eucharistic miracles that were founded by Blessed Carlo Acutis. Ray had been studying it, and he has a podcast called The Joy of Faith on YouTube. Angelo has saw that podcast, was blown away by these miracles, and then reached out to him. Angelo had been in the business as a storyboard artist for several years, like 20 years, and he was looking to really get into directing and obviously doing a film that he could, you know, give back to God. He was working a lot of secular stuff for a long time. He reached out to Ray. They didn't know each other. He pitched Ray this idea for a movie, and that was, the wheel started turning on that. I knew Angelo. I jumped in, and, you know, he had asked me to play Christ, and then it was just from there, getting the money, getting the casting, and doing all that. So with that said, my relationship with Dom is, I actually, you know, I found Dom on Instagram in a sense. I think, you know, the algorithm there was showing me a lot of Catholic stuff, obviously what I'm viewing. And I came across his page probably three years now, Dom, or something in that ballpark. It was before we had obviously developed a relationship before the film. And I'd seen his page, and, you know, I think we all can attest to, you know, wanting to surround ourselves with, you know, masculine Catholic and Christian men who have like the same sort of moral code, and truly live it. And I could tell, you know, that he was. And so I followed him, and I think I just started bugging him a lot on, you know, the DMs. And at the time, I was actually doing these little videos, these little, you know, my own little short form podcast type videos, just trying to be creative and I was sending them to him. And then I think I finally got a follow back, and then we just started developing a relationship. And he loved them. He's like, "He's incredible." And then fast forward, we got in a small group briefly with some top-notch Catholic guys. Andy from Carry the Cross, Jordan from Do the Harder Thing, Pierce from Catholic Guardians. We started our own little group for messaging and stuff like that, and just sort of built from there. And then, me and Dom, just started to remain friends and everything like that. And so fast forward, this movie had its challenges. It seemed like every scene, as we were approaching every scene, and that's movie making in general, but obviously a Catholic film on the Eucharist, you're gonna get some attacks. And man, we were getting ready to shoot, obviously, the scourging, carrying the cross, crucifixion scene over 2 days. We had Simon drop out. The guy we thought couldn't do it. I think this is a week out.
Yeah, it's pretty close, right?
And and I was with Angelo, and I remember we were specifically at this prop place in California, and we were just talking, looking, getting props, and doing all the pre-production stuff. And I was like, I got a buddy of mine, and Dom had a beard just like that,
Yeah. He'd be a perfect fit. He'd be a perfect fit.
I go, he has a good look to him. I don't know how much acting experience he has, I think, but he's been on sets and he has an intensity to him that I think will fit, for this. And I showed Angelo the pictures, and immediately he goes, bro.
Gotta get. Yeah.
I called him right then and there. in the prop place, or I texted him or something.
Yeah.
And you hit me right back, or we've got on the horn, and Dom goes, brother, I'm going to pray on it. I'll call you right back. It's okay. And I think literally you got with your family and prayed on it. And then from there, he's like, I'm in. And so, was super cool. Basically, the first time we ever met in person was under the cross. Yeah. Was under the cross.
It's incredible. Shout out to our friends that Carry the Cross. We're both rocking Carry the Cross bills today. Had to on this day. It's that leap of faith, right? It's just being open to those moments and building real relationship. And, look, the internet brings us a lot of temptations and a lot of things in life that we don't need. But gentlemen, I've found that it can bring some real relationship here, which is spurred to this. Dom, as this request comes in, right? And you're a faithful guy. You wear that on your sleeve. You're not scared to put on the armor and show it for everybody to see. And I think you do that as a way to show masculine men, it's okay to lean into the faith component here. I'm going to ask you a little bit about that later as we wrap. But when Rob makes that call, man, and says, listen, I need you. Can you come play this guy? Can you get out to LA? What were you thinking? How did that go down?
Well, first of all, I'm feeling a little left out because I don't have a Carry the Cross hat. I feel like this would have been the perfect meeting to do that. But, when Rob called me, and I literally did just that, trying to take things to prayer as much as possible. Rob, which is a man that I respect, I love, the things that he's putting out, just the beauty that's coming from his heart, really hit me. And of course, the Eucharist itself is something that's been growing in my life of understanding what it truly is. So this whole journey to the altar, to this beautiful sacrifice that has been misunderstood and not understood in so many different ways, not only by myself, but our culture, there's been this kind of growing. And when I first saw the Eucharistic Miracles movie, I actually didn't even know Rob was involved. I had no clue. I did not have a single idea you guys were even connected. I was like, that is going to be something that's going to change the world. As soon as I saw it, I was like, it can't not. When you speak the truth is set on fire, and there's nothing that's going to stop that film. It's going to save people. It's going to bring people to Christ. It's going to save souls. I know that with all my heart. So that was the instinct that I had. So then watching the connection over the months as it progressed, and then seeing Rob, I'm like, well, of course Rob's involved. This is going to change the world. So when I got that phone call, and it was probably just like everything else in our lives at the most inconvenient time possible, with all kinds of stuff going on in my life, and changes and shifts in what I'm doing with my family. I literally looked at the phone and I was like, babe, I got to pray. I walked her in the bedroom. As soon as I got off the phone, I got down on my knees And I was like, Lord, what are you asking me to do here? I was like, what are you asking me to do? And I just had this voice and this feeling, and my wife telling me, I was like, I can't say no to this. This isn't like, no wasn't even something that came into my mind. It was just, how do I make it work? And I was like, I have to do this. I was like, I can't say no. Just as Christ asked and made that stories for us, that story had to be written.
Yeah.
That story is for every single man in the world, just like every other piece of scripture. But this specifically, what we're talking about today, it was for our lives. It's for our heart. And so when I had Rob, which was playing Jesus, ask me to help carry the cross, how do you say no to
That's
that?
right. That's right. It's pretty literal, isn't it?
Yeah. So to do anything else would have been just it would have put a hole in my heart for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so I had to say yes. And I called Rob back. I said, I'm in. I was like, I don't know how I'm getting there, what I'm doing, what's going on, but I'm going to make it work. And I'm going to adapt just like I always do. And I'm going to figure it out. And there was a fire inside of me that said, I have to do this. And that became my number one priority, knowing how awesome it was going to be. And then to see it in hindsight, I mean, it's still mind blowing. Like I can't even fully put into words exactly the beauty that came from this. So that was kind of the spark of it in that phone call. And, here we are today, just after some amazing growth, brotherhood, accountability, and all the things that we know we need. Rob and I have shared, and we know we're just getting started on that. So it's been awesome.
The trailer for that film is on this show page. We'll share it in the show notes. Watch the entire trailer, but then lean in at the 1 minute and 50-second mark, and you will see these two. You'll get a little sneak peek of what it's going to look like. The intensity on your face is incredible. We'll get to that in a moment. Rob, at this point, right, when Dom's coming in, you guys are getting ready to film what are critical moments. And just to really set the stage, essentially what you're doing for this film is you're recreating these live action moments that then pair with this movie that tracks with these Eucharistic miracles. Very quickly, Eucharistic miracle are the times in life in which that Eucharist, that bread, that host, that wine has proven, right, to miraculously transform and actually bleed and have human cells. That has happened over time, right? And that's well charted, and this movie is going to document that. But what you guys were tasked with as this film crew is to reenact a lot of these moments. So you've got Peter and you've got John, and you've got other disciples, and you're walking on water and you're breaking bread at the Last Supper. And inevitably, you are to be stripped, beaten, crucified, and killed in the film, right? So you bring a lot of folks in to bring together what's a pretty big effort to film those incredibly powerful scenes. Your brothers are a part of it, right? Yeah. Ricky comes in, Ronnie comes in, those guys play Roman soldiers, born to play Roman centurions, those right? Like perfect fit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So where are you guys at in filming all this, and set the stage for Dom comes in, and then we've got to now film these incredibly powerful scenes?
Yeah. So, I mean, you nailed it there with a lot. We had, once we got going, we had started in October of last year. Yeah. 2021. And we were sort of hitting, we had started in October with one of the scenes, and we were right into November, Last Supper, hit another walking on water scene, end of November, early December. And so this was like, it was weekend after weekend, maybe a weekend off here of just pushing. And we were pushing. And like I said,
it's like, you got to get it done.
You got to get it done. There's a lot going on. We have a small budget film.
Yeah. And listen, this footage and filming these scenes is critical to help raise some money to help finish this thing off. You need to show people what this looks like.
Yeah, exactly. We needed to get the live action going. We had filmed sort of the investigation portion of it, where Ray investigates these Eucharistic miracles, and he speaks with the scientists and the doctors and priests and theologians who have all, who've studied these miracles. And so this was the live action that interweaves with all that. And like I said, we were flowing pretty hard, and we were long days, and like we were all, we're a bunch of scrappy fighters, and we were like, let's get it done. Every problem that you could think of was happening. We were just finding a way through it. So, and for me, I can say, like, obviously the rule of Christ has been the honor of my life. It's been a grace that
changed your life.
It changed it. And so obviously every time I step into his sandals, has been I take it very seriously, and I'm devoted to it. But there's something, I think, about the passion, right? I think there's something about the passion that I know I've had a devotion to, the passion of the Christ, and the suffering that he went through. That was just like in the back of my head, I'd say, waiting on it. And so here it came, and leading up to it. And I think having Dom come out was it was a relief. It was a relief to me, because I knew, like, we hadn't met physically or personally, but I knew that I had somebody that was going to suffer with me. Basically, the best way I could say it. As an actor, I was trying my best to allow myself physically to feel some pain. Leading up to this, and I'd been fasting. I dropped about 30 pounds, and all those little things, a pinprick of what obviously the Christ went through. Nothing, but you have to a little bit. And so here we were, leading up to it. 2 long days of shooting that I knew were going to be, pretty brutal. I had my brothers in town, and Dom showed up, and it was everything that we thought. He was ready to go. He was focused. He helped out a lot on some of the production crew aspects of it. And it was just one of those things. Where what's interesting is, because I remember we shot the crucifixion twice. So this was the first time. We ended up having to reshoot it a few months later. But I remember Dom was looking at me like, you fasting today? And I'm like, yeah, it's okay. It was just like, me too.
I am too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
And
Dom, what kind of me getting like any acting coach here? Like, what are they telling you to get you prepared for this? It seems like you're pretty dialed in. Like, you got a sense as to what you got to do here. This role, because look, we've seen it. We've studied it. We've been to multiple stations of the cross. We know about this moment, but to drop into it, what's the mindset, right? What's the guidance dropping into a moment like this?
I think it's the scripture, don't worry about what you're going to say. You'll have the right words when the time comes. And it's just trusting God with every bit of that. And that's exactly what I did. And I mean, more and more we're called to, right? In every aspect of our lives. But where else should I be trusting God more in a moment where I get to, honor the passion in a micro spot, in a micro moment? I get to do that with Rob and all these beautiful people on set, so for me, it just wasn't something that bothered me. I was just ready for it, and obviously God prepares us for everything that we're getting ready to go through. And I knew that it was exactly where I needed to be. I was at the perfect place, and I was on fire. When I tell you, when I got on that set, when I saw Rob, like, my heart was in the game. The spirit was working through me. I felt everything, the people that I was meeting, the conversations we were having about, we were talking about God the whole time.
Yeah.
So like when you're learning from each other and you're watching each other and you see these other amazing people that are showing up with that spirit in them, it just changes you, and that's why I just didn't worry about it. I was with these amazing professionals that, not only from a professional standpoint, but also a spiritual standpoint. You put those two together and it just, that's it. I just wasn't.
Yeah. What did you think? Did it hit you like when you see Rob sort of, he's in, like, when he's in costume, right? The hair, all the stuff. At one point, they have you outfitted with really what we can only depict as about as realistic as it would have been from the Shroud of Turin, right? You look at most crucifixes, he's got a spear in the side and some busted up knees and crowned, and that's about it. But really, it would have been absolutely brutal. Passion of the Christ style, which I think depicts it about as brutal as it's going to get. Dom, when you see, right? Rob, tell us what the setup looks like.
We actually did the wound. Our wounds we pulled that from the Shroud.
Wow.
So we looked at the Shroud. Angela, our director, we got a great prosthetics guy, Peter Murphy, who came on, fantastic, good Catholic guy too. And he looked at the Shroud, and so every wound we try to mimic from the Shroud. So that's where we got it from. Yeah.
Dom, when you see that, right, come into reality, just what's your mind, heart thinking?
Well, I don't know if I should lead up to it or reverse, the story, but the summit of this moment of understanding this and how real it feels and what we're doing there and why we're there, we're in a mass And that was one of the other beautiful things about this. We did multiple masses throughout
Yeah.
set, right? And Rob and I are in mass, the most beautiful place we could possibly be on this earth. And he is just done up with everything that they just did. And not only that, we're in front of the Shroud of Turin that's in front of us in this
the chapel on the property. Yeah.
So I mean, I'm getting ready to receive the Eucharist, and I'm in tears.
I mean, yeah.
Wow. I'm like, what is happening right now? Like, the Lord has put me right here, and how blessed are all of us to be a part of this moment. And we're called to imitate Christ in every single bit of what we can understand scripturally. And when it comes to the Passion and what that led up to, in Mass, what do we say? Through your cross and resurrection, you set us free.
Yeah.
You set us free. That's real freedom. The walk to that cross and Christ's resurrection is everything of understanding our freedom as men. And to be there in that very moment of understanding the suffering that Christ went through, and even to get a glimpse in a kind of another layer of that, it does something to you. There's no coming back from that once you understand it. And to be there with Rob and seeing the intensity and realism of everything, it just gives you the visual. It gives you another layer to know, like, this is real. This is not something that was made up. This is my life. This is what we're called to. And that was just the summit of that right there, being on Rob on my knees, just being like, what's happening right now,
Yeah.
You're not just, here's what I'm hearing from you guys. You're not just acting and going through the movement and the motions. You are physically, mentally, and most importantly, spiritually connected to this in a way that honestly is probably hard to describe if you haven't, right? You guys have been through it. And even Ronnie calls me afterwards. He's like, I can't even explain to you what this is like and how dialed in these guys were doing this. Rob, talk me through the scene, right? How's the scene layout?
So, man, it's interesting. So we'd filmed the scourging the day before. And so, the second day we showed up, and this was the day, it was on, Dom was on. And so we do a few of the takes and a few of the scenes where I'm still carrying it myself. I'm obviously heavily wounded at this point, suffering tremendously, though Christ is. And so just a caveat, the cross we used was probably about 350 pounds. This wasn't hollowed out. So,
real deal.
Which some crosses were, on some sets. This was, 2 railroad tires that we connected, and it was every ounce of as heavy as you could be, which is the way I think we prefer.
That's the way you guys would want it.
Yeah. And so this was a scene. We were set up. I'd been doing some takes, and you could see Dom getting himself to a place. I think the hardest probably part of his character was, which I'll have to go back and listen to Father, but I'm sure he mentions is Simon. He didn't have pity on Christ. He didn't want to carry it.
Yeah, there's a few. I did a little reading too, right? There's a few that's maybe because he's a disciple, right? But odds are, it's like, no, I don't want any part of this. Like, I'm passing through.
He was from Cyrene, so he wasn't. He wasn't a Jew. He was a Gentile, and so he had come in, and the way we shot it was, he was very much like, no, this was a condemned man.
Yeah, good. Let him go.
Going to crucifixion. Let him go. I'm just trying to pass through my kids. I want no part of that. So I think for Dom, as someone who no, Lord, put it on me. He's developed his faith to a point where he's willing to bear his cross now. And it's like, that's probably one of the hardest parts.
You're like going to sprint out there and grab it from him.
Right. It's like, you can't, you have to deny him at first, and he's sort of forced into it by the soldiers. But it was like leading up to it. We had talked a little bit, but we didn't say much. It was sort of like a look, I was sort of in it too. And I could see him preparing and preparing himself. And Angelo gave us our notes, and then it was action, and I fall, and they push him and grab him in the crowd and everything like that, and he played it really, really well. And then after that, it was just one of those moments, at that point, Dom's now bearing the weight of the cross, and I'm on Dom. So he's carrying the cross and my weight in these scenes.
Yep.
And I just remember a few times when we were during action, and I'm, obviously suffering my character and trying to find it and get there, just looking over at him and just seeing that he was there, there looking at it. And we just would share some moments. And if you look at that trailer, you'll see it in one of them.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite moments is, I purposely almost put my head towards him, right?
Yep.
To comfort me in those moments is what Christ wanted.
You've got your arm around him. I almost even see in the trailer like a little tap,
Yeah, and when you see Dom's eyes, I think it says everything. I think every actor will tell you it was there. He was becoming transformed, and and I think also it's important to note that Ronnie and Ricky were hitting us for real. We were putting them on shoulders. Yeah.
You guys really, you really put it together in a way in which you wanted it to feel real and raw and like that. The day a Navy SEAL helps Christ carry his cross is pretty incredible.
I'll say something kind of funny real quick, and that I think people will enjoy. And Dom, I know he remembers,
and especially our audience too.
Yeah, because he is a SEAL and he's so darn tough. So we start mistake, I think, and he's I get thrown down. They grab him, help him carry it. I cut, and then we set up with him, starting to carry. And Ronnie and Ricky are whipping him, or Ricky's, whipping him, not holding back. And Dom is just taking it, We go through and then Angela's like, cut. Beautiful. He's like, nah, listen, Dom, this is supposed to hurt you.
Yeah, so act like it hurts.
Yeah, act like you're not supposed to, because he's so tough and the SEALs in him and this light, and you want to take it for Christ, but it's like, remember, you're Simon, you're not the Navy SEAL.
You're the Cyrenian who's just
yeah. And it was, but you get moments like it because it's so much weight to this, and it's so. It's a lot going on, that there were these little moments during very serious stuff where you get a little levity, and you needed it. It was beautiful. It then it put you back right to where you need to be, and we kept going. But we talked about that time. It was just beautiful. It was funny, And then after that, he started.
So the Renzi brothers got a few in on you, Raso. Is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
Well, with guys with vowels at the end of our names, it's okay.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
It's okay to do that. Dom, listen, man, you've performed at the highest level on behalf of our nation, right? Been asked to do things that a lot of Americans wouldn't be asked to do, and we're grateful, eternally grateful for that and your ability to do that. There's some kind of similarities, I would assume, to dropping in a special operator mode and sort of dropping in and performing this. Were you leaning in on any of that experience, right? Past experience in the military to kind of get ready for this thing?
Yeah, for sure. Especially the physical aspect, definitely. Because like Rob said, this was no joke. It wasn't, and we did want it that way because we're going in to tell the story, the best story, the most beautiful story ever told. And without suffering, it wouldn't even feel right, Yeah. And so I think mentally, of course, I always talk about mindset. I always talk about improving the way we're thinking about things, the way we approach things. But this story of conversion in that short moment, and like you just brought up that there's so little talked about Simon, sometimes when you said that out loud, and often when I've reflected on this, it reminded me of Joseph a little bit, where there's not much written about this humble, quiet man that just follows the will of God. And Rob's hit the nail on the head when he said, the most difficult part of this is you rejecting, in a sense, Christ at the moment where they're asked to carry the cross. And at first, that's exactly the reaction that I had. I'm like, man, how am I going to convey this with authenticity to be able to say, I don't want any part of that, because every part of me wants to die for Christ. But I think the important part of that conversion is the same exact conversion that we have as men. And I'm speaking for myself. because how many times did I deny Christ, not wanting to get under my own crosses? Still to this day, the difficulty that we have, not wanting to get under our own crosses. And we are reluctant. We think we're all gung ho, but yet when it comes down to it, in front of the world, in front of an audience, in front of everything that's going on in front of us that the world wants us to be, we reject and we deny, and we don't want to be a part of it. And that was a beautiful thing for me to recognize, not only in Simon, because it did change my life. I would say Simon and Joseph, 100% of the two men in the Bible that really, really forged my heart to true conviction and about how we do that. But getting in that moment and suffering with Rob and feeling the weight of that cross, and knowing, like we said, it was like a pinprick. It was like a little piece of sand on the world compared to what actually happened. But just to get to experience that, it created a humility in me that I've never had before. I got to see things from a different angle, and while everything else prepared me for it, there's really nothing else like it, and that's why a lot of tough guys out there that think, oh, well, you did that, so you were a team guy and you were a SEAL, so you can do that like anybody else. And now that my faith has increased by the grace of God, I start to realize that this is more impactful. Our faith and the disciplines in our faith prepare you for more than I was ever exposed to in the military, as a SEAL, as a man. And a lot of what I've done through the church and through the sacraments, it doesn't compare. And I've talked about that a lot. It doesn't compare to what I went through. So I believe that our faith prepares you more for what I did than what, I did in the military. So,
yeah. Well, that's an amazing parallel. And obviously the three of us, right? St. Joseph, just, the epitome of sort of male role model, silent but active. And I often say, like, if you could go back in one time and meet three people, whatever, he might be number one on the list. To go back in time, right, and meet that guy. I would love to drop in. I'd love to drop in when Jesus is like 8 or 9. Yeah. He's just raising them. I would love to, as a father, right? I just love to drop in and see that. But to think about the parallel between him and then obviously Simon later, I also wondered, do you guys, because I think about this just hearing you talk, and I wonder if you've thought about it. What does Simon do after this? Does he think much of it? Does it have an impact on him? Right? Does he carry it with him later? Eventually, if all the disciples are killed, except for John the Beloved later, right? He's the only one that dies of old age, I think. Rob, you can check me on that?
Yep.
That means Alexander and Rufus go too, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting when you think about that stuff, right, Rob?
Yeah, because we know through scripture, obviously we get what we get out of the scripture in the story, but we have sacred tradition, obviously, as Catholics too. We have we pulled a lot, I think, as Gibson did in the Passion from Blessed Anne Emmerich, the Dolores Passion, and in there's a lot of information on Simon as well. And we do know that he's transformed. By the time they got to Calvary at the top, that he's a different man. It didn't take Jesus long. Once you accept the cross and follow him, it doesn't take him long to transform you. And I think that's really the story here. That's why I think we're all talking about it. Here's a cross that we don't want. Here's an inconvenient cross, and it bears the most fruit when we accept it. And the physical act of carrying it spiritually changed Simon. And that was a beautiful parallel. What just sort of wrapping full circle with Dom is, I said, maybe one of the hardest parts for him was the denial. But I tell you this, you should have watched when we got to the top of Calvary. Wait till you see that scene when he can't let go, when he can't turn away, when now all you want is to die for him, and just that short little cross. I'll tell you this, get ready for that scene, because he knew what he was doing there. And it was beautiful to watch. And we had to put Ricky and Ronnie on him for that scene because
Ronnie said, I said, how was it? He goes, I had to put hands on him.
Well, God bless all the other Roman soldiers, but when we were like, okay, I remember looking at Dom. I think I was pretty much wrapped at this point. We had done the scenes, and so we're like, okay, we're going to transfer the cross up, and there's this huge shield to transfer up. And everyone
you guys had, the setting is incredible. where you filmed.
Unbelievable.
And I've been fortunate enough to see some behind the scenes stuff that you've sent me. I mean, it's
Yeah.
amazing. It looks.
That's a real testament to Angelo. Real testament. He outdid himself on set design, location scouting.
He pours his heart and soul into it.
Unbelievable. So we found a really great place in the Santiago Retreat Center down in Silverado, California, and gorgeous. But I remember, I had wrapped, we'd done all the scenes with me and Dom, and we're like, okay, now we gotta film him, not wanting to leave, Christ. And we were talking about it. I was looking at Dom, I was like, yeah, just imagine, imagine if you were here with Christ, and it was actually you they picked, and now they want you to leave. Like, how would you? And I'll never forget. He just looked right up at me. He goes, "You'll have to kill me." And he put his head down. He's like,
"Yeah,
you'll have to kill me. That's it." And we were like, "Oh, okay, let's get action." He's ready, And then we go to transfer the cross, and he goes, And Dom was like, I need to. Let me carry it, and he carried it up the rest of the hill, this steep hill. Felt some pain. He had to feel that suffering a little bit. We set up, Ron and Ricky were ready in action, and it ended up being really beautiful to watch, touching. And I think we did it in one take, Dom. Yeah, that scene, and so it was beautiful, man.
Yeah. Dom, from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about being under the cross, and you obviously we prayed on Simon's conversion and what happened there, and really trying to visualize what did he go through, everything that he felt, the emotion in a short period of time through Calvary of the reluctancy and being like, oh my goodness, this could be the end for me. I'm getting wrapped up into this thing that I had nothing to do with. And then sharing and touching the blood of Christ and walking with Christ and bearing the weight that he bared, and in his last and final moments when he was crippled as a man in his physical form, you're coming in there to bear that weight for him, right? And so I'm getting goosebumps right now because like this whole journey through those steps, every step Simon is just changing his heart and realizing what he's been missing and realizing who he is now and realizing where he's been called, and everything is making sense. And I felt every bit of that. And of course I have the SEAL and tactical part of me that's calculating how I could just take every single person out under the cross. Like if I had to do it now, I would take that guy's sword, lob that guy's leg off, and just take around. But I also am bringing the heart of Simon into this of being like, he wasn't a warrior. He was a guy that just got pulled into this thing. This wasn't his profession. He was with his children. And in a sense, just becoming this passionate brawler at the end, being like, now you're not going to pull me away. Now I know my calling. I was confused. I was lost. But I just shared with Christ under the cross. And now I know who I am. And I bear that weight. And now you're going to have to kill me to take me out of here. And as soon as that scene ends in the Bible, we don't hear anything else.
That's it.
We don't get to understand where else he went, but God gave us just enough to know. Just enough to know. It doesn't take many words in the Bible to know that he was a changed man from going, not wanting to do it, from doing it. And I just tried to put myself in that mode, and it wasn't hard to do because of how amazing and how just connected I was in that moment with Rob, looking over at Rob. I mean, they're whipping us. I mean, it's not like Rob said, it was all very real. I mean, there was some that it was like, it put me in fight mode.
Yeah, I bet.
Not to get out of this.
Yeah.
And so at the end there, I truly did feel like I didn't want to leave that mountain. I didn't want to leave that top of where it was. Rob was on the ground, just beaten down. Everybody's over him, kicking him, kicking sand in his face, still whipping him. And then we got separated. It was like this pull, you know what I mean? That I didn't even want to happen, but here we are at the cross. Now Christ is getting pulled this way, and I'm getting pulled this way. And it was this kind of like dark separation of, I know this is inevitable, but this is part of what needs to happen. And I just had to do everything I could not to, make it real. I had to like play the game and kind of let go a little bit of what was actually happening, to not to get too caught up. But yeah, it was a true conversion as well as the conversion of Simon. And, it was just a beautiful, you couldn't have been in a different spot. I mean, we were up there at sunset, with everything going on and literally at the top of the mountain where Golgotha, you got the other crosses in the ground and you're staring at this big gap of where we're getting ready to walk. I'm being pulled away from, knowing that that's it. That's the end of my scene. And Simon as well. That's it. It's over. So his life changing after that. You hear stories about his son. Potentially, there's another Alexander later, which they can only really connect it with him becoming a bishop, I believe, after the fact. And so, it makes sense that would be the case, that he made such an impact that his children and everybody else converted with him because he knew.
So, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Guys, just what an absolute gift and a blessing to be able to do this with you on today of all days, right? This Good Friday, as we really, go into this just powerful weekend. Easter has changed for me in a big, big way over the last 4 or 5 years, really. It's always been important, right? Raised Catholic, never let feel. I was talking to my dad about this the other day. We have a lot of conversations. I was actually just texting him. I said, I'm so grateful for you and Mom for just setting the example. I felt like I never left. I'm very good. And that's not the same for everybody. It's just my perspective. I was just thanking him. But then I think about just being around guys like you and just growing and maturing in the faith. And just, boy, man, the last 4 or 5 Easter and Lents, we got to pour it in. And just to hear your story, the way that you guys poured it in on that day, and it's not lost on me. And this is how God works. Our audience knows this. We've talked about many God moments here. We don't talk faith at this level on every episode. I'm so grateful to do it. It's not lost on me that you had somebody lined up to play this. That fell through, and you had to call on somebody. I mean, it's just the parallels, man. You can't make this stuff up, Rob. It's just, it's as he would have orchestrated that there's no coincidence. It's when God takes action and chooses to remain anonymous about the results. In this one, he's letting us know it was him. But I mean,
I call him winks and nudges. On this film, I've been like, we get a lot of winks and nudges from him, and that's that. Those God moments that you just know it's not coincidence or this and that. You're like, okay, he's still working. He's in control. All right, great. He's still blessing this film, So that was one of those moments with Dom and everything like that. Mm-hmm.
We still need some help though. So before we go, gents, Rob, can you just, where are we at? Our listeners are going to feel moved after this. After these last 2 days, right? Father Hamel yesterday, incredibly so grateful for him to sort of really give us some biblical sense, right? And unpack a little bit. These guys sharing their shared experience. Where are we at with the film? Give us what I call the data dump, right? Where can people get more info? What can they do to help you in the process?
Yeah, our website is Eucharistic Miracles, so plural, EucharisticMiraclesMovie.com. If you go there, you can see all the behind the scenes and what we're working on. There's a lot of info there. We finished the live action. And so we need money for post-production. This film, it's just going to be so epic. Again, we're going into the Eucharist. We're going to transubstantiation. We're going to show it in a 3D animation style. What happens at the Mass?
Incredible.
And so we filmed with blue screen. Anyway, editing's, it's a lot of money, right? And a movie can be made or broken in the editing room. So we need to raise some money for that. And we will. We're confident, God won't be outdone. And so there you can check it out if you want to help or donate at that website. You can on Instagram, Eucharistic Miracles Movie too. And the movie actually, it will be called The New Manna. That's our title for when we release it. So if you go on YouTube too, you said you posted the link in your, so that's good. But if you type in The New Manna trailer or anything on YouTube, you'll find a bunch of stuff there too.
Awesome. Gentlemen, I love you both. I'm so grateful for your dedication to do this together. I wish you nothing but a great Easter weekend here. And man, I've just been, it's a good one. I'm almost a little lost at the end here. That's rare for me to kind of be that way.
Well, Dice, I'm grateful for letting us jump on here and speaking about this, man. It's been something that obviously we'll never forget. And like anything, when you suffer with somebody, it unites you. to another level. And I'm just grateful for Dom and for coming out and bearing that cross with me. It was an unforgettable moment.
Awesome, man. Yep.
Yeah.
All right, John, what do you think, man? Wrap it up for us.
Yeah, I appreciate both of you guys so much. And, you said it, that it's changed. And I think in the hearts of men, especially with how we're leading our children, we have to make this season different. It's the most important time of the year for us. And out of all the things that the world tries to teach us and tell us and all the secular stuff that's going on, no matter who you are listening to this, I encourage you guys to dig deep. This is our season to train. This is our season to forge. This is our season to understand what God's truly calling you to do, to form our will to his. And if we don't do it now, more than all year, when will you? God bless you.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. I love it. Guys, beautiful. Have a great Good Friday. Have just a powerful and meaningful Easter. And I just greatly appreciate it, gents.
Thanks, Dice. Appreciate
you. Got it. That's Dom Raso and Rob Renzi. I'm Brian Jodis. That's been this episode of Pick Up a Six Podcast.